Chapter 2, Location and Transportation. In location and transportation, projects can score 9 points to 20 points based on the LEED rating system. Healthcare projects can score up to 9 points and residential projects can score up to 20 points. Projects can earn points in location and transportation credits by two ways. Either they can choose the project location in LEED neighborhood certified location, through which they can earn LT Credit 1 LEED for neighborhood development location, or they can pursue all remaining credits in location and transportation category. For example, NC projects can score up to 16 points if the project is located in LEED ND certified location, or they can score 16 points by pursuing all remaining credits in location and transportation category. So they can score 16 points only by selecting the site in LEED for neighborhood development certified location, or they can pursue all remaining credits, that is 1 plus 2 plus 5 plus 5 plus 1. So total they can score 16 points. At this point, I want to answer one of the frequently asked questions. Is it required to remember all these numbers? My answer, it is not necessary. Don't try to memorize these numbers. Wherever numbers are required to be remembered, we will cover them through example calculations and practice questions. Another question frequently asked is, what are these credit numbers? We don't find them in the reference manual. Yes, LEED reference manual does not give credit numbers. We use it for easy reference. LT refers to location and transportation, C refers to credit, and P refers to prerequisite. In location and transportation, there is no prerequisite. The credits in location and transportation are related to location of site and how people and occupants travel from the site and to the site. The overall objective of this category is to reduce environmental impact associated with site selection, to reduce environmental impact associated with transportation, and increase physical activity and hence promote healthy lifestyle. Let us now discuss each credit in detail. For a better understanding, first we are going to discuss LT Credit 2 to Credit 8 and then we are going to discuss Credit 1. LT Credit, Sensitive Land Protection. It is a design credit, that is, the credit can be documented along with the design submission. Residential projects can earn up to 2 points and all other projects can score up to 1 point. At this point, it is worth noting that all location and transportation credits are design credits. All LT credits are design credits. The intent or objective of this credit is to avoid development of environmentally sensitive sites and hence reduce environmental impact associated with site selection. There are two options to achieve this credit. The first and best option is to locate the entire development in previously developed site. This is the best option. Locate the entire development footprint in previously developed site. What is development footprint? Development footprint is the building footprint plus all associated hardscape. These associated hardscapes include parking, roadways, walkways, services, etc. Previously developed sites are sites which are altered by pavings, construction, and or land use that would typically require a regulatory permit. LEED encourages developments on previously developed sites to preserve undeveloped greenfield sites, farmland, and other environmentally sensitive sites. The second option, if the project is partially or completely located in an undeveloped site, then it should go for option 2, which is not to develop a sensitive site, not to develop a sensitive land. Let us discuss this option in detail. So the requirement is not to develop the site in a sensitive land. So what is considered to be sensitive land? LEED considers these 5 types of sites as sensitive sites or sensitive land. That includes prime farmland, flood hazard zone, a habitat for endangered species. A habitat, what do you mean by habitat? We discussed in Green Associate. Habitat means natural environment. So you should not develop a land which is a habitat, which is a natural environment for endangered species. What is endangered species? Endangered species are birds, plants and animals which are very less in number, and they will extinct very soon if they are decreasing in the same pace. The 4th type of site is water bodies. Your development footprint should be at least 100 feet away from water bodies. The 5th type of site is wetland. Your development footprint should be at least 50 feet away from wetland. Now let us discuss these 5 types of sites which are not to be developed in detail. Farmland. In US, farmland is defined by US Code of Federal Regulation. It is identified in Natural Resources Conservation Service Soil Survey. International projects may refer to equivalent local codes. The 2nd type of site is floodplain. The requirement is the project should not be located in legally adopted flood hazard zone. The project should not be located in legally adopted flood hazard zone. In US, FEMA, that is Federal Emergency Management Agency, or the local entities maintain a flood hazard map. International projects should identify flood hazard zone by using equivalent standards or through a qualified hydrologist. If there is no legally adopted flood hazard map, project should be located on a site that is entirely outside any floodplain, subjected to 1% or greater chance of flooding in any given year. In simple terms, the probability of getting flooded in any given year should be less than 1%. The probability of getting flooded in any given year should be less than 1%. The next requirement is about habitat for endangered species. As we discussed before, habitat means natural environment, and endangered species are the species which are very less in number and they are expected to be extinct very soon. Endangered species or threatened species are listed in US Endangered Species Act or States Endangered Species Act or Natural Heritage Program or State Fish and Wildlife Agency species or ecological communities classified by NatureServe. NatureServe classifies endangered species into 4 types: GH, G1, G2 and G3. The most endangered is top to bottom. GH is possibly extinct or eliminated, G1 critically imperiled, G2 imperiled. G3 are vulnerable. For LEED requirement, endangered species listed in G3 is not considered. For LEED requirement, only GH, G1 and G2 are considered. The next requirement is about water bodies and wetland. Water bodies are generally deep waters. These are generally deep waters, which includes sea, ocean, lake, river, pond, etc. Wetland is generally shallow water, which includes mangroves, marshy land, etc. Wetland is generally shallow water. For the credit requirement, the development footprint should be at least 100 feet away from water bodies and it should be at least 50 feet away from wetland. Projects in US may refer to US Army Corps Engineers Wetland Delineation Manual to identify wetlands. What about artificial water bodies and wetland? if the purpose of water bodies or wetland is for recreational purpose or stormwater management, they are not part of the credit requirement. Artificial water bodies and wetland made to restore or improve habitat are part of credit requirement. Artificial water bodies and wetland made to restore or improve habitat is part of the credit requirement. The next part of the requirement is minor improvements are allowed in the buffer. Let me explain buffer using a diagram. Suppose you have water body, this is the boundary of water body. So this is your development footprint. LEED requirement is that this distance should be at least 100 feet. So this is a water body. I can tell this is the development boundary. So the distance between the development boundary and the water body should be minimum 100 feet. Generally it will be higher than 100 feet. This region between the water body and the development boundary is called as buffer. Here minor improvements are allowed. What are the minor improvements allowed? There can be a bicycle or pedestrian walkway and the width should not be more than 12 feet. 12 feet width maximum. And within this 12 feet, only 8 feet can be impervious. Remaining should be pervious. So generally what projects do is that they will make 8 feet concrete, they will make 8 feet concrete walkway, and the 2 feet on either side will be gravel. 2 feet on either side gravel. So total would be around 12 feet. So this minor improvement is allowed. Activities to maintain or restore native natural communities and natural hydrology is allowed. One single story structure, maximum of 500 square feet for every 300 feet is allowed. Grade changes necessary to public access is allowed. Clearings of maximum 500 square feet for every 300 linear feet is allowed. Brownfield remediation activities are allowed. Just to recall, brownfield sites are basically contaminated sites, contaminated areas which requires remediation. So these are the minor improvements allowed within the buffer. Within the buffer, some trees can be removed, and some other trees should not be removed. Trees which are 75% dead and have a condition rating less than 40% can be removed. Condition rating is generally assessed by arborist. Arborist is a professional who will assess the health of trees. Smaller trees can be removed, that is, trees less than 6 inches in diameter at breast height can be removed. Breast height is 4.5 feet from ground level. Trees which are more than 6 inches in diameter at breast height and trees whose condition rating is more than 40% can be removed by 20%. For projects in US, the local codes and standards clearly define sensitive sites. International projects may require the services of a qualified biologist or ecologist to identify local equivalent codes. For documentation, site map showing the development footprint should be shown for both the options. Project team need to provide documentation confirming that the development footprint is on previously developed site or it is not located in environmentally sensitive location. Let me now summarize what we have discussed in LT Credit 2 sensitive land protection. The intent of this credit is very clear from the name. The intent is to protect sensitive sites and hence reduce environmental impact associated with site selection. It is a design credit. By the way, all location and transportation credits are design credits. And there are two options through which you can achieve this credit. The first and best option is to locate the entire development footprint in previously developed site. That is the best option, and if you are not able to do that, If you are not able to do that, you can go for option 2, which is not to develop a sensitive site. And LEED identifies 5 types of sites as sensitive sites. Number 1, farmland. So you should not develop a farmland. You should not develop a site which has flood hazard. So flood hazard zone, in flood hazard zone, unless it is previously developed. And number 3, not to develop a site which is a habitat for endangered species. And number 4, not to develop a site which is within 100 feet from water bodies. So your development boundary should be at least 100 feet away from water bodies, and your development boundary should be at least 50 feet away from wetland. So farmland is identified by Code of Federal Regulation. It is defined by US Code of Federal Regulation or local equivalents for international projects. Flood hazard zone in US is identified by FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, or local government agencies. If there is no legally adopted flood hazard zone, then your development boundary should be in a zone where the probability of flooding should be less than 1%. The probability of flooding should be less than 1%. So that is about flood hazard zone. Number 3, habitat for endangered species. Habitat means natural environment. Endangered species or species which are very less in number and they will extinct very soon. Nature serve list endangered species as GH, G1 and G2. So a site which is considered to be habitat of species which is labeled under G1, G2 and GH should not be developed. Your development boundary should be at least 100 feet away from water bodies. Also a point to remember, minor improvements are allowed here. Minor improvements are allowed in the buffer. So what are the minor improvements? Basically you can have a pedestrian walkway or bicycle way, maximum of 12 feet width. This 12 feet with 8 feet can be impervious, and 4 feet, so this is 12 feet, 2 feet and 2 feet. So this 8 feet can be impervious, and this 4 feet should be pervious. Generally it will be gravel, right? So this is the type of minor improvement that is allowed. Then brownfield remediation is allowed. If there is any contaminated part within the buffer, then it can be remediated. Activities, then access, improvements to allow access to maintain a natural hydrology. Clearings of 500 square feet for every 300 linear feet is allowed. And a single storage structure of 500 square feet for every 300 linear feet is allowed. Also, you can expect trees within the buffer. So there are trees which can be removed, trees which are 75% dead, or condition rating less than 40%. This can be removed. Or smaller trees where the diameter is less than 6 inches at breast height can be removed. Breast height is 4.5 feet from ground level. Okay, who gives this condition rating? Condition rating is given by a professional called as arborist. Arborist assesses the plants and he gives the condition rating, right? So these are trees that can be removed. All other trees not to be removed. Other trees which has a condition rating above 40% or more than 6 inches in diameter, they can be removed by 20%. You can't completely remove it. 20% can be removed. Regarding codes and standards for US projects, federal, state and local codes clearly define sensitive sites. The 5 types of sensitive sites are clearly defined in state, local, or federal government codes. For international projects, the project team has to hire a qualified ecologist or biologist who can help them to find out equivalent local codes. So that completes LT Credit 2 sensitive land protection. Thank you very much.